Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our global conversations here today. Over the last decade and a half, we learned to pay close attention in discussing European-American relations, especially in security matters, to those countries who were under Soviet occupation for many decades. The more so when it comes to those states that were part of the Soviet Union, the Baltic states, and in particular to Estonia. And few people are better positioned to discuss this current state of affairs with the Ukrainian war and the impact on American-European relations than our two speakers today.
Actually, one of them is really qualified. The other's just here.
So we'll give him the prime state. And the Honorable Ambassador of Estonia to the US, Kristjan Prikk, who led a marvelous career in the defense and foreign ministries in Estonia before being appointed as the ambassador to the US in May 2021. A frequent visitor to Stanford. Always a pleasure to have you here. And Mike McFaul, director of FSI and former ambassador of the United States to the Russian Federation and an official in the Obama administration in charge of the US and Russian Federation's relations. Thank you so much for coming here today. We will start with opening comments of Ambassador Prikk, and then Mike will take over in guiding the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Weiner. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor McFaul. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time from your busy schedules and giving us this opportunity to discuss what is going on in Europe, in Ukraine, what's at stake, and what to do with it. Now, this is my fourth time since I became the ambassador to visit Stanford and Stanford libraries. And in fact, this is my third time to visit Stanford and Stanford libraries since the Russian full-scale invasion started. I was here on 27th of February 2022. The full-scale invasion started on 24th of February, which happens to be our Independence Day. So President Putin tainted our Independence Day with this horrible aggression forever. The second time I was here in December 2022, and both of these times during the full-scale aggression, we've had these discussions about the war and assessments of what to think of it, what to do with it. Last time around, I started my remarks by saying that the security situation in Europe is currently the most difficult one, or the worst it has been since the end of Second World War. I also said that it will likely worsen before it starts to get better. So this assessment was from 1.5 years ago, and I'm afraid that I was no fortune teller, but I was right. The situation now is even worse than it was in December 22, and I'm afraid to say that we assess that this downward trajectory will most likely continue before it really starts to become better. And whether it comes better or not depends on our actions. Now, the public moods and the moods of the politicians, the moods of academia and think tanks during this war have gone seriously up and down. We all remember the very first days of the invasion. The public perception that Ukrainians most likely will not able to withstand or push back this invasion was quite widespread. Then it shifted quickly, and suddenly the Russians that were perceived as 10 foot tall suddenly became, I don't know, 3 foot tall. I don't think that either of these attitudes were actually correct, were actually reflecting the realities. But this is the nature of current information environment. This is the nature of the way we expect to see results very fast. We hope, or we quite often also join the crowd if there are changes in the public perception and the mood. And I'm afraid to say that the mood for the past couple of months at least has been pretty much of doom and gloom. Whereas I'm not ignoring or neglecting the situation on the ground, I also would argue that quite often these days the doom and gloom is there is too much of this doom and gloom. So what is going on, and why should we all care about that? I think everyone in this room are paying attention to daily reports coming out of Ukraine or daily reports coming out of other capitals that relate to Ukraine. But I'm afraid that too often we are focusing on the very last tweet that we have seen, whether it's good or bad. This mostly conveys the mood or events happening on the ground. Now, whereas this is part of the bigger picture, I'm absolutely confident that ultimately this war is not about the governance or ownership of particular towns or cities in the east of Ukraine. This is not even about who will control the access to large swaths of Black Sea coast, or who has the access to critical minerals in the east of Ukraine, or the fertile black soil. This all is part of this conflict, and very important to people who live in these areas or who have economic ties to these areas. But again, when it comes to the bigger picture, this war is not about controlling Chasiv Yar or some other city in Donbass, or not even who controls Kiev. Ultimately, this war is about the future of international order. Nothing more, nothing less. Why I'm so confident to say that? And I'm not even going back to the public statements and the ultimata that the Russian Federation presented the US and NATO with in the end of 2021. But I'm going to a basic understanding that every international conflict, as massive, as extensive as this is, will change the rules of the game. There is no way of going back to pre-February 2022 rules. There is no way of going back to pre-2014 time. Ultimately, there is too much political military capital invested into this conflict. We all are, whether we like it or not, and we Estonians absolutely think that this is something that we have to do. We are invested into this conflict. And anything short of Ukrainian victory will determine the rules of the game that are more favorable to Russia, that resembles the worldview of Russian Federation than the rules of the game that we've seen since the end of Second World War, or certainly since the end of Cold War. So what to do with and this is the reason this war and the outcome of this war is not only important to people in Kiev, not only to neighbors of Ukraine, not only people in Europe, but this conflict has global meaning and global impact. We believe, Estonia believes, that we have to be very clear in our strategic messaging and setting the objective. The objective should be to support Ukraine as much as it takes for Ukraine to win, and to do it as quickly as we can. We believe that the strategic approach is the combination of different measures, including the military, including economic, including political information, and so on and so forth. But it's important to understand that Ukraine winning means that, firstly, Ukraine restores its territorial integrity and sovereignty. Secondly, very importantly, that aggression as a tool of statecraft is thoroughly discredited. And thirdly, that Ukraine gets integrated or moving towards European Union and NATO as the ultimate tools bringing security and stability to the transatlantic space. We believe that in terms of military support, 0.25% of GDP from the countries that support Ukraine, that have supported Ukraine and have pledged to support further annually, is the level of support that would, so to say, do the trick. And the Estonian government has pledged to supporting Ukraine at least for the next 4 years at the level of 0.25% of GDP in terms of military assistance. Consider 0.25% of GDP, this is less than 1 day's worth of GDP of our collective economies. This, we believe, will help to get Ukrainians to the position where they can deliver on the battlefield the message to Vladimir Putin regime that by continuing this war, every day they are losing more than they can achieve. And we believe this is the key to achieving strategic success, delivering Putin a strategic dilemma, whereby by continuing this war, he risks his own regime stability. So I would stop here, and would be happy to continue in this discussion.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you back. And I apologize for being late, but you got us right back on time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll go to the audience and take questions. Before we start talking, though, I want to say just a couple of things about the leadership of your country, your government, and you. I think your prime minister is a rock star. I think she's a superstar. Her voice and her straightforwardness about talking about the things that you just did is an inspiration to me. As a small D Democrat and a small L liberal who believes everything you just said. I was listening and taking notes. Do I disagree with anything? I didn't. So I want to thank you for that. I want to also thank you, though, and you personally, for what you've done for us here at Stanford. If we were meeting a decade ago, it'd be me, you, and these 4 people here in the front row. I mean, we would be here, the professors would be here, and maybe 2 or 3 students. But what you have built with Lisi, with the Stanford libraries. Look at how many people are here. This is important for this long-term game too, because we have a deficit of understanding about Europe in general in America. We have a deficit of understanding about Europe at Stanford, and we have a deficit of understanding about your country and your part of the world, and you, rather than just complaining about it, have done big things to try to change it. And I just really want to thank you as a professor from Stanford that you're contributing to the intellectual life of this place, which will help the long-term game plan that you talked about in terms of the fight between what I think is a fight between freedom and tyranny, and you're in the front line of that. So thank you for everybody that have done that. It is truly remarkable and transformational for Stanford. So you're doing it for the world, your prime minister and your country, and you're spending at higher levels than most countries are. I point that out when I give my talks about Ukraine, but you're also doing it for us. So I really, really appreciate that. Let me ask some small questions and then one or two big questions, and we'll go to the audience. So the first question I want to ask is just about the latest debate, which you're well aware of, about whether or not American weapons should be used to attack targets inside Russia. Help explain why you, well, I don't want to assume what your position is. Tell us about that debate. Tell us about that debate in your country. Tell us about the debate in Europe. I'm particularly interested in your insights about Germany right now. And then tell us what you think about the debate here in the United States, including in Washington where you live.
Yes. Firstly, thank you very much for these kind words of yours. We believe that that this is the kind of struggle that we all are in, that again defines the future of ourselves, the future of our kids, the future of the way of life and values of the West. So there is no question where should we stand on that. Now, answering to your question regarding this debate, the debate about the use of Western-made and particularly in the context of this country, the US-made weapons, whether it would be okay and under which conditions to use against the targets within the Russian Federation, or whether there should be some kind of restrictions. I guess it's very widely known public knowledge that the current arms deliveries from the US have this very strong political restriction that does not allow the long-range artillery, for example, or US-made drones or other longer-range weapons to be used against the targets within Russia. Now, this debate became particularly hot and heated over the past couple of weeks when Russia opened the let's say new front or quasi front near Kharkiv, where firstly not only longer range missiles, but even the artillery shells from the Ukrainian positions could actually reach Russia,
right.
And where the particular offensive started by Russian forces amassing on the Russian side of the border in plain sight, without the Ukrainians having the right to actually target these forces. Now, we believe that there is absolutely no question about the Ukrainian right to target Russian territory to defend it herself. there is no question according to international law, according to the assessments or statements made by the UN General Assembly, for example, who is the aggressor in this war and who has the right according to international law to defend herself. So we are very much of the view that we should not impose artificial political restrictions that would not make sense militarily, or to put it the other way, that would actually make it more difficult for Ukraine to defend herself. So we hope that this discussion will lead to a relatively rapid development, whereby we can find a way with the Ukrainians how to make sure that they can use these weapons in a way that the Western governments feel okay with. We all know that Ukraine has been successful in this war when they have had the ability and range to target Russian supplies, the logistics system in general, Russian C2 and communications. So and we've seen them being very measured and responsible when attacking targets also in Donbass or Crimea. It's all about getting the military relevant targets.
So if President Biden were here, or his team, one of the things they raise in this debate is the threat of escalation and their worry about Putin using a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. And just yesterday, I don't know if you saw his remarks, I'll bet you did, and it was a little bit elusive, but he talked about small countries with highly concentrated populations need to take this in mind. And it seemed like he was talking about your country in that threat. And he didn't say nuclear weapons, but he implied it in his remarks. At least that's the way I read it. My Russian used to be pretty good. It's not so good, but that's the way I read it. Others, if you saw it, it seemed pretty threatening to me. How do you as a country deal with threats like that, including the nuclear threat? And how would you advise the rest of us here in the United States to think about that threat? Because I do a lot of talking about Ukraine around the country, and this threat comes up every single talk. Why are we poking the bear and starting a nuclear war, Professor McFaul? Why are you dragging us into a nuclear war? How do you respond to those kind of arguments?
Again, we are in a situation where there is the most blatant case of one country attacking the other one, and by doing that, pretty much trampling on the fundamental principles of international law, of international security, violating every single international treaty that Russia has signed related to Ukraine or European security writ large. So we feel that, or we don't feel, we know, we are confident that if we let this to happen, if we let the aggressor to get its own way, then we will have the nuclear problem and then some.
Right.
At the same time, we know this year NATO celebrated 75 years of the alliance. And throughout this time, NATO has been the nuclear alliance. And pretty much throughout this time, the Soviet Union and then later Russia has had the nuclear weapons, and unfortunately also there have been nuclear saber rattling before. NATO has been not pretty good, has an excellent track record in keeping the nuclear deterrence in place in a way that has never reached the nuclear war. I'm confident again that if we continue this way, if we are responsible, measured, calm, but clear in our own deterrence messaging, then the nuclear war will not happen. Not against NATO, and I would argue also not against Ukraine. I would further argue, and this is a topic that would probably be worth of a separate seminar. But I would further argue that the Russian kind of doctrine of escalate to de-escalate, basically to use the tactical nuclear weapons in order to deliver the message to the opponent to stand down. This doctrine has less deterrence value now than it had just 2 years ago, and primarily for the reason that Russia has used the nuclear bluff or nuclear argument so very often. And at the same time, even the most staunch of the Russian allies or friends have made it very clear that this threshold should not be crossed in any case.
Right.
So we should definitely pay attention to what the Russians are saying. I believe today, and if I'm not mistaken, Dmitry Trenin suggested also, one of the well-known Russian think tankers, used to be labeled as very Western-minded, suggested that Russia should conduct a demonstrative nuclear test to deliver the...
He said that?
I believe it was Trenin, but I have to find this out. So if I'm mistaken by the identity of this statement, then I have to retract that. But this was also said today. There has been too much of this irresponsible kind of language. We should pay attention to that, but we should not be deterred by it, and certainly we should not self-deter ourselves at the price of letting the international order to fall into pieces.
Great answer. Let me ask you one or two more questions, and we'll go to the audience. You very rightly, in my view, described the ups and downs of our assessment of the Russian military, right? The beginning of the war, they're going to be in Kiev in 4 or 5 days. Then there was a period they're completely worthless. And that was an underestimation, and now they're back. When I interact with Europeans, especially in places like Tallinn and Vilnius, I was in Vilnius a few months ago, and I was at the Leonard Mary conference. If you ever get an invitation, you must go. It's the best security conference that I have ever had the privilege of attending. I couldn't go this year because of teaching, but I remember the conversation last year, including with your prime minister, and then this year at a conference in Vilnius called the Snow Conference, where, just as you were alluding to, there's new assessments in the region about the rapidly growing strength of the Russian military, and warning people like us, visitors, that they'll only stop if they're stopped on the battlefield. And I see some historians here of Europe, and I'm not a historian, but there was lots of analogizing to World War II and how the Red Army was just not very effective in 41, but by 43 we had a very different assessment. And that was a metaphor in the room. And I came back here and I gave a talk about that to a group of Americans, and one of the Americans came up and said to me, "You are exaggerating this threat. You're trying to scare us. There is no way that Putin would ever attack Estonia. He would never attack Lithuania." Tell that person if he's right or wrong, number one, and just give us the sense of the way you all see the threat today compared to just a few months ago. And then secondly, offer us some ideas for what we should do to enhance deterrence. Because obviously the best way to do that, you already said, help the Ukrainians win. There's nothing more important. I agree 100% with that. But in addition to that, there might be other things we could do, especially within the NATO alliance, to increase deterrence, to decrease the probabilities of a threat from Putin to your country. So one, help us understand your new assessment of the threat, and then two, what should we be doing more to deter such a threat, specifically for Estonia and specifically for the NATO countries on the front line?
I'm certainly very glad that that people have this strong belief that our adversaries will never dare to challenge us, because this statement in a way radiates this self-confidence, which I think we often need more than we tend to have these days. However, it's not enough to just assume that the adversary, the leader that has publicly declared his country being in the conflict against the West, whose different surrogates parrot the lines about Russia fighting NATO, Ukrainians actually being only the puppets of NATO,
right.
Then the need to turn the NATO capitals into ashes and things like that. We shouldn't just assume that for some reason they can never do something that seriously challenges also the alliance. It only happens if our defense and deterrence posture is credible, if our messaging is again cool, calm, but vigilant and strong. It also only happens if our military forces are at the kind of readiness and with the kind of capabilities that really do make sense for the adversary. I used to work for Estonian Ministry of Defense for years, and the kind of metaphor or the kind of example I often preferred to use was that we should constantly strive to be in a position that whether we think of our own country or we think of NATO, whenever Putin goes to his senior military and political also advisors and asks them, can we get away with it today? Then the answer is, no, we can't. And this means that it's not only the military, as I said, but certainly the military part, but also that politically, also in terms of our laws, and in terms of the mindset of our own general population, we've developed the kind of resilience and readiness culture, where the adversary won't develop the kind of misconception that we may actually not respond to, right, or not to do whatever necessary to avoid any challenge to our societies, be it outward kinetic attack or something that tries to be just under the Article 5 threshold. So this kind of readiness culture, awareness of the threats around us, and staying firm, committed, and calm when facing this long-term challenge. Oh, and you asked about our assessment of the Russian military. Our assessment, long-term assessment, has been that that even with the war going on in Ukraine, even with Russian military having suffered the most significant casualties that they have, and losses that they've endured since the Second World War, they will focus on the, as they call it, Western military direction the first moment that they can. We see that even while continuing with this war against Ukraine, they are already taking steps to carry out the military reform that former Defense Minister Shoigu talked about, which would increase their the size of their military to 1.5 million. Basically increase the numbers by 50%. By building new units with newer equipment when they have the opportunity. Our assessment has somewhat changed, and unfortunately not to the better, when it comes to their ability to recruit personnel. We expected the effect of these horrible losses that the Russian military has endured in Russia, the psychological effect to recruitment to be more serious. Apparently, the combination of different factors going on or affecting the Russian society these days, they are surprisingly good in still being able to recruit people, even if they know that they're going to be sent to meat grinder.
That's depressing to hear, but we have to have accurate assessments, as you said, to deal with the challenge. Okay, we have some time for questions. We have a microphone, a roving microphone, and I'll look to see where, okay, this gentleman right here. We'll start, and if you could just introduce yourself and then ask a question, and then speeches we will have at 1 p.m. If everybody wants to give a speech, we'll just let you stay here on the podium after the ambassador leaves, but questions are what we want right now.
Thank you very much, first of all. I'm concerned about the morale effect on the Ukrainian soldiers in the field on our dysfunction and self-deterrence here in the United States. I was wondering if you could address that.
Excellent question, great timing, unfortunately. So I think I can not only speak for myself, but for a lot of people in Europe, and certainly every Ukrainian would tell you that how very thankful they are to American people and ultimately to American Congress for getting to the point where the long-term support at this very high level to Ukraine continues. And having said that, I have to also say, without going into too many numbers or anything, contrary to the very widely held view or understanding in the US, Europe has not stood without doing anything, but rather the different contributions of different European countries, including mine, but not only, are remarkable and unprecedented in the post-Second World War time. Just yesterday, Belgium announced the delivery of 30 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. This is a major commitment.
Huge.
But now, getting back here and talking about the morale, I believe that there is a huge task of how to replenish the stocks of certain kinds of ammunition in Ukraine, particularly that these types of ammunition that no other country could supply, because they didn't have the industry, because they didn't have the access to contracts. So the supplies that only the US could deliver. But replenishing these stocks is a relatively easier task than restoring the fighting spirit, the morale, confidence, and trust in the long-term Western support. And I think we should absolutely not be blind to the detrimental effect that these discussions, not only in the US, but including in the US over the past 8 months or so, had to the morale of the troops on the front lines, but also those who potentially might be drafted next. And I hope that now with the, let's say, the psychological momentum also changing a bit, I hope that we can help the Ukrainians to get over this effect.
Great. So I have a special bias towards students, and I have a special bias towards Estonian students. If there are any in the room that have questions, but this gentleman right here, yeah.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. My name is Ashat. I'm from Kazakhstan. I work in the Space and Digital Ministry. First of all, thank you for interesting discussion. My question, what do you think about a track to Central Asia and Kazakhstan?
I think what we are seeing right now in Central Asia, in the wider region, is that all eyes are on this particular war right now, and this is one of the cases proving the point that this war will have a wider effect on the kind of international order, on the relations between different countries, on the priorities and preferences of different countries that are not directly party to this conflict, but who may take their cues from what's the end result of it. We all know that there are those in Central Asia, including in Kazakhstan, who prefer to be close to Russia. There are those who think that China should be the priority partner. There are also those who prefer to see United States and or Europe to be closer to Kazakhstan. I absolutely hope that we are ultimately able to not only help the Ukrainian people and nation to survive and this conflict and prosper after that, but also that the end result of this war will help other nations to prefer to interact with and trade with, have investments with the democratic part of the world.
Great. So right behind you, right behind you, there was a woman trying to get the microphone before. It's great.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us. I'll stand up. Hi, I'm Kyla. I'm a CSAC honors student here at Stanford. My question is, I feel like with this war, we've been seeing a rise of private tech companies and their role in armed conflict. Examples could be Microsoft, Google, and SpaceX with Starshield terminals. I'm curious, what do you see as the role of private tech companies moving forward in supporting Ukraine, especially as this becomes a longer-term effort?
That's a fascinating topic, and yesterday evening I had the opportunity to discuss some of it with some people involved in tech and but more particularly in the cyber security sector. I said then, and I would say it also here, I hope that the role of private tech companies in helping Ukraine to survive on the very first days and continue to survive now will be is one of these stories that will be made more public and analyzed more thoroughly in the future. We've seen that some big names, and you mentioned some of them, have been in roles that probably no private company have been in the past military conflicts, where these companies often made decisions that were not exactly improving their bottom line, but made their decision because they wanted to be on the right side of the history. And I certainly hope that this is kind of textbook case for also future generations of companies and entrepreneurs. Of course, there are also cases where we see Ukrainian government or military growing dependent on certain systems, and without maybe that direct involvement of government, Western governments in delivering these systems or these services, it may lead to some troubles also when suddenly the companies have a very powerful role, maybe even almost a monopoly status, and when they then develop their own ideas how to use this technology or how to get paid, and these are also interesting issues that should be solved.
I agree. I think I know who you were talking about, but you're very diplomatic there. And I do actually think this is for other, it sounds like you're already graduating, or you're just starting your thesis. So you're too late, but for other students, I think this is a great topic to be studied. And in particular, the relationship between your country and Ukraine in the technological field. There's a lot that's going on. I think it'd be a great honors thesis that I'd be happy to supervise if anybody wanted to write it. Sir.
So there's been some questions over the past couple of years about Putin's health. In the event that he was unable to lead, how would that affect both sides' approach to the conflict, and what might a post-Putin Russia look like?
Firstly, I tend to not pay too much attention to those different reports of different dictators becoming suddenly ill or unstable or what have you. We have to live with the realities that we have now with Putin, whom I personally would like to prefer to name the leader of the Russian regime, whose fifth term is now going on, right? So even if he's not there, the Putinism is certainly strong and healthy in Russia. So this is also one of the reasons why we believe that that the clear, thorough victory of Ukraine in this conflict is something that is necessary for even having the chance of Russia then cleansing itself from the effects of this current approach of things, the Putinism.
Great. In the way back, Sir's been waiting patiently. Yeah, please. There's one microphone, and then we'll probably have time for one more question.
Great. Doug Karpa, Tere Päivästä. I just, thinking about why America should care, I'm looking at sort of our election currently, and the questions about whether or not the United States is actually a reliable partner in NATO, looking at the response of Germany and France and Britain, questions there. If Ukraine loses, I'm wondering to what extent, and there's different kind of related questions to both of you, to what extent countries like Estonia or Kazakhstan or Georgia are going to want to have their own deterrent, their own particularly nuclear deterrent? Should there be a Baltic bomb with the Baltic states and Finland? And then for Ambassador McFaul, is that something the United States should really, really be worried about, that a whole bunch of countries are going to be like, the old international order is gone, now we need to defend ourselves and we need better defenses than we can get from NATO?
Without even going into naming particular countries or regions, I do think that the issue of the potential risk of proliferation, nuclear proliferation, as a result of the outcome of this war, has been seriously underestimated, and it is actually something that should be discussed more, and the risks of this war not going the way I described should be viewed more from the point of this particular perspective. Now, the other reasons why, and I didn't want to go into all sets of different areas, but what I would just like to say about the reasons why should America care. After all, both in the case of First World War, Second World War, there was a point when America felt that it had too many interests related to the stability and peace in the rest of the world, that it couldn't stay out of the conflict. I would argue that the Americans and also sometimes American partners these days often underestimate the level of positive interdependencies that have been developed during the past 80 years or so since the end of Second World War. So whatever dependencies, global dependencies were there in 1940 dwarf to what we have right now. Even with the US as mighty and as connected to different countries as it is, I would argue that the United States is not capable of taking care of the major global challenges, particularly related to rise of China, alone, without Europe, without other allies and partners in the Pacific region. And you all know and you all see how very invested is Europe into getting this war over with the positive results, and how very closely the Indo-Pacific partners and allies of the United States actually are also involved with helping Ukraine to get to victory.
Fantastic answer, very important, the interdependence. So we have 2 minutes left. I saw more than just 2 hands. So what I'll do instead, let's just take those, I see 3 hands. So this gentleman, right? Oh, I see 4 hands.
It's like auction.
So we're going to do a rapid fire. Everybody that has their hands up, Lisa, let's let them ask their question. And then the longer you ask your question, the less time we'll have for answers, because we're going to try to end right at 1. But okay. Rapid fire, go ahead.
Cool. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go for it.
So I visited Estonia last year, beautiful country, beautiful people. And I learned that Russia conducts cyber attacks on Estonian businesses and Estonian government. How is the situation right now?
Great, good, short question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this might be slightly a repeat, but I think looming over this conversation is very much, in my mind, the threat from the upcoming election that we do end up pulling out of NATO as a country. And I guess in light of some of your responses, what would be your response to those voices that I hear in our country, even on our campus, that say that America should look at America and forget about what's going on abroad? Okay, yes, maybe we're interconnected, but who cares about the spending? Let Europe take care of itself. How do you respond to that? And then also, in the unfortunate case that we do end up having a country outside of NATO, how do we as citizens who want to engage continue to do so and continue to support those abroad?
Okay, big, hard questions. This gentleman right here, and then the gentleman right behind you. You'll get, and then the woman right back there gets the last question. And we're going to be fast, right? Because we're out of time now.
So with the front line not moving significantly in the last 2 years, do you think the war is moving towards ending according to the Korean War scenario? And if that's the case, would it make sense to end it sooner rather than later to save lives?
Okay, right behind you.
Historically, I was born in Estonia. My father was a cavalry officer, beat the Russians. Our property was taken over by the Germans as their headquarters, then the Russian as their headquarters. We had to escape with bullets flying over our heads. So I have historically a vested interest. We still have property. What is the state of private property that we have rights to in jeopardy? And as a side thing, what is immigration effect on Estonia? I understand the Russians, millions have come over the border. Is that an issue for Estonia?
Okay, great. And then last question right here.
Yeah, I would like to know how the world went wrong to get to this stage. Because looking back when I was a university student, this was a problem. That was many years back with Russia. So where did we go wrong to get to this stage now?
So, Ambassador, I did you a great disservice there by having 5 questions at 1 o'clock. Those are really big, hard questions. I think you should just, don't have to answer them all, but maybe just a few final thoughts in answer to those questions or anything else you want to say.
Sure. And I may have missed the last question, so I may have to come to you and make sure that we get it answered or settled. But the cyber attacks, absolutely, it's current normalcy that there is constant latent stream of attacks. People who deal with these, they do great jobs, but time to time, every country unfortunately has troubles. I was recently almost baffled by hearing that Estonia is 7th in the world in terms of number of cyber attacks aimed at our information system, which means that we are by far the number 1 in terms of, again, per capita attacks. Estonia is big about per capita metrics. You can only guess why. The elections and NATO membership, I absolutely believe, not because I'm an ambassador, but because I've seen NATO work, I've studied NATO and so on and so forth, that NATO is the greatest political military alliance there is, the alliance that brings so many benefits to the United States, is the force multiplier, not only in the political military domain, but also it's something that actually creates conditions and reasons for countries to be with the US in economic affairs, in trade, investment, but also in many political global issues. And whoever wins the presidency, I hope. And I'm pretty confident that there are sane people around him to make sure that U.S. remains committed. Korean War scenario, that would only be even contemplated in the case of both sides really wanting to get out of this war. At this moment, we see that the sentiment of the Ukrainian population, even despite all these tragic losses and everything, is that they don't see any way to just leave it like that. But maybe even more seriously, the Russian leadership only sends the signals that their strategic objectives vis-à-vis Ukraine have not changed, and they want it all. So that would be my answer.
Well, great. Well, I want to say 3 things in closing. First of all, thank you for a fantastic talk and taking all these questions. Second, thanks to your country for being a leader for the free world in a GDP per capita basis, doing more, I think, than any country in the world to that front. And third, I just want to say thank you for your interest at Stanford University. We greatly value this partnership, and that you're here again is a testament to what we can do together. So thanks for all of those things. And for those of you who want to make speeches, you're welcome to come up here and talk. I don't think we have microphones available anymore, but you're welcome to come give speeches. So thank you so much. Thanks for this.